So, let me ask you a question. When you watch your favorite comedian or like your favorite influencer online, how much of what you are seeing is actually them?
Yeah, that is the big question, right?
Right. And, how much of it is just a carefully constructed shield? Because today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that.
And it is a pretty wild story, too.
Oh, it is insane. Welcome to the deep dive. Our source material today is an incredibly raw, highly revealing transcript from a recent stand-up special called Still Alive.
Yeah, by the Indian comedian Samay Raina.
Exactly. And our mission today is to completely unpack this fascinating tension between a creator's authentic self and their internet persona.
Which is a tension basically every public figure deals with.
Right. But we're specifically looking at how one controversial joke on a podcast triggered a massive, frankly terrifying national backlash.
Yes, the internet is essentially a high-stakes game of perception. And
Yeah.
today, we are looking at a case where the rule book for that game was just completely torn apart.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we are getting a really rare peek behind the curtain of the internet fame machine. And, well, the psychological toll of cancel culture.
It is a heavy toll. We are going to look at the intricate dance of editing for, freedom of speech versus sheer survival.
Yeah, survival is definitely the key word here. So let's start with Samay's core philosophy. Because if the internet is this terrifying place, how do you even survive it?
Well, he states his philosophy point blank. He says the internet is not a place for real honesty or art.
Wait, really? An artist saying it is not for art?
Exactly. He views it strictly as a game played to set a high score in our bank accounts. That is his perspective.
Wow. That is incredibly cynical, but also kind of refreshing.
It is very pragmatic. He argues that if creators were truly honest about how they speak in real life, they would face multiple police reports every single day.
Right, because nobody talks like a corporate press release with their friends. So he adopts this specific strategy. He calls it the Gondu strategy.
Yes, Gandu, which in his words translates roughly to being a scoundrel or, an intentional jerk.
Right. He actively creates an internet persona that is intentionally worse than his real life self, which, is kind of brilliant.
It is a massive shield.
It is like setting expectations at work, right? Like if you always underpromise, you never disappoint anyone.
Exactly.
Samay sets his moral bar so incredibly low that nobody ever expects clean, polite behavior from him.
What's fascinating here is the psychology behind why a clean image is actually a massive trap.
A trap? How so?
Think about the psychological burden of maintaining a pristine reputation. If you are known as the wholesome, perfectly moral creator, you are carrying this massive weight.
Oh, because the second you mess up, everyone pounces.
Precisely. One mistake, one bad joke, and the world is ready to drag you down. Samay notes that a clean guy cannot be a scoundrel, but a scoundrel can be clean.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And we actually have a perfect contrast for this in the source material.
Yes, the Khan Beniga Kropati example.
Right. So Samay goes on KBC, which is basically Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in India, hosted by Amitabh Bachchan, who is like a literal legend.
He is the most family-friendly show on television.
Exactly. And Samay goes on there, and he plays the perfectly clean, respectful grandson. He even talks about how much his grandmother loves Amitabh Bachchan.
It was a very touching, emotional moment on national TV.
But the crazy part is, his grandmother had been dead for 7 years. He completely lied.
He lied to fit the wholesome format of the show.
And people did not cancel him for lying. They praised him. They said, oh, wow, he's so versatile.
Right, because his baseline is being a scoundrel. So good behavior is a pleasant surprise. But let us look at the flip side of this equation with his guest, Ranveer.
Oh, yeah, Ranveer, known online as Beer Biceps. He is the polar opposite of Samay.
Exactly. Ranveer spent 10 years building a very specific image. Yoga, meditation, spirituality, extreme self-improvement.
Very clean.
Yeah.
Very wholesome.
Very clean. But he goes on Samay's unscripted comedy show, India's Got Latent, and he gets comfortable. And he makes a deeply crude, vulgar joke.
But wait, isn't he just trying to be versatile, too? Like, Samay was on the game show. Why did it backfire so badly for Ranveer?
Because of the friction of breaking a trusted persona, the audience feels betrayed. You cannot mix the spiritual guru image with crude humor.
They just clash completely.
Yeah, Samay points out that you can do yoga or you can make crude jokes, but you cannot invent a yoga pose that combines both.
That is hilarious, but it is so true. The audience expects pure oxygen from the guru, and when a crude joke slips out, it feels like a lie.
The audience thinks, well, if you're faking the purity here, Have you been faking the spirituality for a decade?
Wow. Yeah, that cognitive dissonance is huge. So Samay admits that if he had made the exact same joke, nobody would have cared.
Nobody at all. It is entirely about the persona delivering the content.
Which brings us to the actual product, the show itself. India's got Latent. And, it shatters this whole illusion of the raw, unfiltered show.
Yes, people think unscripted comedy is just free-flowing, easy speech.
Right, just friends hanging out. But the reality is it is a heavy, grueling editorial process.
Extremely grueling. The live show we are talking about was 5 hours long. 5 hours of brutal, unscripted roasting.
And they're touching on every sensitive topic, right? Religion, caste, LGBTQ issues, sexism. Just a minefield.
It is a total minefield, and Samay was terrified of the political extremes, both the left and the right.
So he acts as this ultimate censor. He slashes 5 hours of footage down to just 1 hour.
And we should clarify, we are looking at this impartially.
Yeah.
His goal in the edit room was not political activism for either side.
Oh, absolutely not. It was pure survival. He just did not want to get eaten alive by the internet mob.
Exactly. He just wanted to protect everyone in the room.
And speaking of protecting people, there is this insane detail about the live show. Singh had to take 30-minute breaks during the taping.
Just to check on his panelists' mental health?
Yeah, because taking nonstop brutal jokes for 5 hours is psychologically draining. Like, people are smiling for the camera, but they are hurting inside.
Which leads to the incident with Apurva, one of the panelists.
Oh, this story is wild. So Apurva is backstage during one of these breaks, and she is crying. She is totally broken down.
Because she was not a professional comedian, she was an influencer, and she felt totally inadequate.
Right. And then, back on stage, this rapper from Gwalior starts insulting her. And he makes this deeply crude, unscripted comment about her anatomy.
A very invasive comment.
Yeah. And Samay's first instinct as the host is to edit it out, to protect her. But before he can even process it, Apurva fires back.
She delivers a devastating comeback. She asks the rapper, "Have you ever seen a vagina since you were born?"
It is such a good line. And it was totally unscripted.
Which perfectly illustrates the theme of authentic expression. Samay wanted to edit it out, but he realized this was a real profound moment.
A woman standing up for herself in a super patriarchal, aggressive room.
Exactly. So he left it in. He accepted the risk of the backlash because the authenticity of her victory was more important than his fear of controversy.
That is actually really powerful. But the crazy irony here is what Samay calls the pandemic from the 1% germs.
Yes, the cruel irony of the edit.
He removed 99% of the controversial stuff. Like, Ranveer asked that crude joke 8 different times, and Samay cut 7 of them.
He was trying so hard to sanitize it.
But the 1% he left in triggered a literal national crisis, which makes you wonder, how does a creator balance free speech with self-preservation?
Especially when the rules of the internet change daily.
Right. And the answer is survival always wins. Because when the police got involved, Samay initially tried to be noble. He cited democracy and freedom of speech.
But the moment he found out his editor was arrested in Mumbai and the police were taking detailed notes on the video footage to find more crimes, he broke.
He immediately deleted the entire show. A video with 40 million views just gone, survival trumped artistic integrity in a heartbeat.
Which transitions us perfectly into the actual anatomy of a backlash.
Yes, the disproportionate outrage. How a single joke on a podcast escalates into a national incident.
Let us trace the timeline. He uploads the video while he is in Seattle. Twitter starts trending.
And then it jumps to national news channels, and Indian TV news is intense. They had live debates shouting about how these podcasters are ruining the youth.
And then the politicians get involved. The chief minister of Assam, a massive political figure, files an FIR, a formal police report.
Over a podcast joke.
Yeah.
And then other celebrities jump in to take the moral high ground, like Mukesh Khanna, the guy who played the superhero Shaktiman.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a symbiotic relationship. The media feeds on the controversy for ratings.
Yeah, they do not actually care about the joke. They just want the engagement. The internet turns a human mistake into a profitable spectacle.
Profitable for everyone except the creator, because we really need to dive into the physical toll this took on Samay.
It was not just a PR crisis. It was visceral. He was on the biggest U.S. tour of his life, facing the loss of his life savings.
8 crore rupees.
Yeah.
That is everything he had.
Everything. And he starts having severe anxiety attacks backstage, vertigo, sweating, hyperventilating.
His therapist actually told him to cancel the U.S. shows. She warned him that the audience would see the terror on his face.
But he could not afford to cancel. So he goes out there and he performs 90 minutes of stand-up comedy purely from muscle memory.
While completely dying on the inside.
Right. It is the ultimate comedian's mask. The audience is laughing, and he is internally having a psychological breakdown.
And the surrealism of the crisis just kept escalating.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The details of the fallout are just bizarre. Like, he posts a picture of himself playing chess to calm down, right?
Yes.
And the national news broadcast that picture as proof of his shamelessness. They were like, look at him playing chess while the nation burns.
It is completely absurd. And then he gets an Uber in the U.S., and his Punjabi cab driver already knows about the scandal.
He could not escape it anywhere. And then the scariest part, the Assam police raid a random student PG accommodation in Pune, thinking it is Samay's house.
Because of old telecom records.
Imagine being a random college kid and armed police kick your door down looking for a podcaster. Those kids must have been terrified about their weed stashes.
It highlights the ridiculousness of state power being mobilized over internet outrage. The stress of all this pushed Samay into actual derealization.
Yeah, he felt like he was in a psychosis. He had to take 32 milligrams of melatonin, which is like half a bottle, just to force himself into unconsciousness.
We needed to escape the feeling that reality was breaking apart.
Which brings us to a really sad realization about how men handle emotional crises, the absolute failure of male consolation.
Yes, this is a fascinating observation from the source material.
Think back to Apurva crying backstage. Samay admits he had absolutely no idea how to comfort her. He was totally unequipped.
And when Samay was having his panic attacks in America, his best friend Balraj was equally useless.
Oh my God, the Balraj story. Balraj literally typed into ChatGPT, "My friend is anxious, what to say?"
And started reading robotic AI-generated advice to him.
He was like, "This too shall pass." While Samay thinks he is going to prison. It is so funny, but so deeply bleak.
It shows how men are culturally conditioned to suppress emotion. They try to offer mechanical solutions because they are emotionally stunted.
Right. They cannot handle raw vulnerability, especially when that tough alpha male facade cracks.
And the facade completely shattered for Samay when his friend's parents were affected.
Right. Balraj's elderly parents managed the comedy club in Mumbai, and they sent a video begging the police at the club, pleading that they had nothing to do with the joke.
Seeing innocent people in their 70s harassed by the police because of his internet persona was the breaking point.
It broke him. He had a tearful video call with his mother, and this brings us to the emotional core of the whole deep dive. Samay's father.
His father's backstory is incredibly vital to understanding Samay's resilience.
Yes, his father is a Kashmiri Pandit. And for those who don't know, they had to flee horrific violence in Kashmir. Not once, but twice, in 91 and 98.
They fled actual terror to build a new life in a new city.
His dad worked tirelessly just to put Samay into this elite, prestigious school called HPS. But Samay faced heartbreaking bullying there.
The rich kids would shoot rubber bands at his eyes.
Yeah, and Samay would hide his father's modest Maruti 800 car so the rich kids wouldn't mock him. He hid all his pain and his bruises just to protect his father's dream.
He learned to fake his emotions at a very young age.
Which is an amazing irony. The comedian who fakes being a scoundrel online learned his emotional resilience from his stoic father.
Because when Samay is having a breakdown over losing the show, his father is totally unshakable.
His dad just calmly tells him, "You do not exist because of the show exists because of you. You will become wiser from this."
A perspective earned through surviving literal displacement and violence.
Absolutely. And Samay gives this actionable takeaway for the audience that is just so beautiful. He talks about the scratch card of fatherhood.
Yes, the idea that fathers often hide their love behind an awkward, tough exterior.
Exactly. Men suppress their feelings. But Samay urges you, the listener, to scratch the card. Call your dad, push past the awkward grunt or the thumbs up emoji and just say, "I love you."
Uncover the emotion underneath the tough exterior.
It is such a stark contrast to the toxicity of the internet, which leads us to the final act here, survival and the ultimate rebirth.
Because the tour eventually ends and they have to fly back to Mumbai.
And they are terrified. They think the police are going to arrest them right on the tarmac. They land, they brace themselves, they walk out, and the airport is completely empty.
Not a single reporter or police officer in sight.
It is crazy. Why? Because of the absolute luck of the news cycle. While they were flying, another comedian, Kunal Kamra, sparked a brand new political controversy.
The media outrage machine simply found a new target and moved on.
One day, you are public enemy number one, and the next day, you are yesterday's news because someone else sent an offensive tweet.
It really exposes how artificial and hollow the outrage cycle truly is.
Completely artificial. But Samay still had to deal with the police. He had this interrogation with a high-ranking Mumbai cop.
And the tonal whiplash of that meeting is incredible.
The cop literally starts by saying, "My niece is a huge fan, can you talk to her on the phone?" And then immediately follows it up with, "So, are you going to apologize for the joke?"
This raises an important question about the Orwell dilemma.
Right, George Orwell said, "Every joke is a tiny revolution." And Samay is sitting there debating if he should be a martyr for free speech.
But philosophical idealism rarely survives the reality of the legal system.
Exactly. Samay thinks about an Assamese prison, and he remembers his father's Kashmiri Pandit wisdom. You only fight when the fight is fair.
Being a martyr for a podcast joke does not help anyone. Survival is paramount. So he apologized. Twice.
He swallowed his pride, and he chose survival. And that choice led to this massive creative rebirth. He spent 2 months in total silence offline.
He realized chasing the internet's validation is just a trap.
A complete trap. He went on tour and sold 300,000 tickets globally, proving that real-world audiences are entirely different from internet outrage mobs.
The physical world audience actually wants to laugh. They do not want to police your speech.
Exactly. So his ultimate conclusion is that he wants to abandon the soft, heavily edited online content. He wants to do wild, phone-free live shows.
A space where he can finally be his authentic self without the threat of a permanent digital record.
Right. So we have unpacked this incredible journey today. From building a bulletproof scoundrel persona to facing terrifying national backlash.
And uncovering the profound emotional anchors in family and prioritizing physical survival over digital pride.
Yeah, the internet forces creators to wear these heavy masks, and true vulnerability is almost always punished by the crowd, which leaves you with something to think about.
If the internet demands a performance, where can we actually be real?
Right. Is the only place for authentic human connection and true freedom of speech left in the physical world, locked in a room where all the cell phones have been taken away? How much of your own online self is just a character designed to avoid judgment?
It is a vital question for anyone living in the digital age.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment today to connect genuinely with someone you love. Maybe even scratch that coupon code with your parents. So what does this all mean? It means it's time to log off and be real.